Hey kids, CJ Ramone, world famous Ramones, right here. You are watching CJ Says, a Ramones podcast. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to a new edition of CJ Says, Ramones podcast. Our guest this week is a New York hardcore legend. He is also the subject and star of an amazing new documentary feature film called Wired for Chaos, which is available worldwide now. He is the original Cro-Magnon, the punk rock Artful Dodger, songwriter, jiu-jitsu instructor, husband, father, and friend. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined this week by the illustrious Harley Flanagan. Harley, what's going on, dude?
Wow, that was a hell of an intro, brother. Thank you so much.
Strictly the best for the best.
CJ, it's so great to see you again, man. It's been way too long, bro.
Yeah. Looking forward to this, though, man. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, man. Obviously, I have a lot of history and memories of your band, and I don't even know where to go. I mean,
well,
where do you guys want to
kick
go?
back, relax, Harley. You're in safe hands here. Let's start with how you two first met. Let's just begin there and get a bit of backstory to this friendship first.
Well, you know what? I was actually trying to remember when I first met you, and I can't really remember when we met, but I remember when you auditioned for the Ramones. That was a huge, that was unbelievable because the fact that opportunity was even out there, and then fucking my man CJ fucking goes to the audition and fucking gets it. And quite honestly, I don't think there was anybody more appropriate for the job. I felt that way then. And I will stand by those words. I mean, obviously DD was a huge part of what it was, but I can't think of anybody that could have came in and did that job in such a fucking, it was such great transition. It just was right in line,
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. So I remember, I had met you a couple times, and that's before I was ever in the Ramones. But brother, it's so ridiculous to say I met you because, I mean, everybody met you. Everybody knew you. You know what I mean? You pretty much were, at least to. They used to call us Lips, Long Island Poser Skins. So at least
you park motherfuckers.
So like just having been around and seeing you, talk to you a bunch of times, but
just to be clear, he didn't come from like a bougie, nice part of fucking Long Island. I mean, Deer Park was some white trash motherfuckers, but
yeah. Hey, I'm originally from Hollis.
Oh, word! I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was born in Hollis. Yeah,
that's where I lived.
That's right.
Okay, well, a lot of people from Queens eventually moved out to LI.
Yeah. Well, that was the dream, right? You get out of Queens, you go to Long Island.
We're moving on up to Long Island.
But so I think I saw you when I was in the process. We hung out over by was it still King Tut's Wawa Hut at that point? I think it was.
Yeah, we were over
I think it was still the Wawa Hut.
At Wawa and St. Mark's Bar and Grill, and what the fuck was that other? The Holiday, I meant. The Holiday.
The Holiday. Yeah, the Holiday. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, the Holiday. We hung out, and I told you that I had gone down to the audition, and you were like, "Man, good for you." You were like,
"Yeah, I was really stoked, man. I was so fucking happy for you." And like,
I had to tell you up front, though, congrats on the movie. I watched the movie. It's really, really done well, brother. Tells your story like in the best way possible, in that there's no bullshit in it. It's really your story, and the stories that you tell are, uh, it makes all the people that love and respect you for what you've done. It makes them love and respect you even more, brother, because that is one heck of a survival story. It really is, man.
Hey, you know what? First of all, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. But to be fair, I actually had nothing to do with making the thing. You know, they it was really Rex Miller and the editors, and my wife was one of the producers, which was helpful in the fact that she edited my book, so she knows my story better than anybody, and a lot of the archives were ours, so she didn't shape or direct the direction of it, but she was able to help making sure that things were chronologically correct, making
Right.
sure photographs matched up with names, stories matched up with dot dot dot. So I mean, a lot of work went into it, man, and I didn't see it till it was done. So I was kind of I was definitely because I mean, I've done a lot of crazy things. I've done a lot of stupid things, and I've done quite a few not so great things. So I was like, man, this film could really go any direction depending on, you know, um, and it's really it's good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, as far as, it's not, I don't hide my mistakes because, I think they help make us as well, you know.
I tell you, the the one thing that just stuck in my head was, watching about your childhood and how you traveled around, you were constantly moving, all the wild stuff that you saw and everything else. And I was thinking to myself, like, for a kid to have that much noise going on in their head,
Yeah.
like, what the only thing that you can do is to scream louder than all that noise. And that to me is where your hardcore spirit comes from. It's like the only way you can get past all that noise is just to scream louder. And that's what you did, brother. I mean, it may sound overly poetic, but after watching the movie, that's what I was left with.
That's fucking deep, bro. I mean, that's really pretty fucking. That's more accurate than you can even imagine. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Thank you
man.
for your insight, bro.
Yep.
Sometimes, I mean, art really, music, whatever it is, it saves us, when we got nowhere else to go. Even as listeners, you know, how many times has a song saved you?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm
I
saying? So, to just be a part of being able to do that for some other people with my contributions, it makes it feel rewarding when nothing else does, when you're sitting there wondering why everybody else is making money and you didn't make shit, but then you get a message from someone that says thank you for, you know,
saving
getting
my
me through this
life.
time. Yeah. So we
Yeah.
got to be grateful for shit like that, man, because we do so many shitty things in our life. If we can change a couple people or do a couple things right, the you know, it's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes your time here worth something. It
Yeah,
really
man. If you
does.
can bring a few other people up in your journey, then you're not just a selfish piece of shit breathing air and taking shits and eating food.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, and I think the hardcore scene for New York City just gave the punk and hardcore scene gave a lot of kids who had nowhere else to fit. It gave them a
Oh yeah.
place to, you know what I mean? It gave them
Yeah, yeah.
community, gave them family.
I agree. I think that pretty much the punk movement did that worldwide, you know, punk and hardcore. I mean, I think all youth cultures that play, musical things that happen like that play their role in that. But I think punk rock and in a way really kind of brought it down to the bare minimal, the nitty gritty of it. I mean, it's like, how do you take something that's broken and turn it into, I came from poverty, how do you take something that's shit and turn it into something good? I always have a way of finding that the half full glass instead of the half empty glass. And in the same way, punk rock was taking minimal musical skills, shitty gear, no place to play, maybe a shitty little shithole, and still making it into something fucking, you know, meaningful, powerful, game changing. And to bring it back to the Ramones, in a lot of ways, I think that that's really what was so fucking special about them. I actually think that they are more than a punk band. I don't even really think of them as so much as a punk band, to be honest.
Agreed.
A lot of people are like, "Oh, the Ramones, punk." For me, and this is just my opinion. And I got all the records as they were coming out. Never mind the
Yeah.
ball, first Clash record, the first Damned, all that shit. I was getting it like literally as it came out. And to me, all that stuff was punk. The Ramones, although punk at its core, in a way, it's actually the essence, the real essence of punk. But it's really more so, it's Americana.
Yeah.
If you really listen to it and think about it, because punk rock was like really, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
spiky hair and fucking gobbing in your face and almost like what's the word I'm looking for? Just really
Nihilism.
Yeah.
nihilism, just like
Yeah.
shit show, destroy,
Yeah.
upside down, cross, the queen, safety pin. That wasn't the Ramones.
Yeah.
The Ramones, if you listen to the music, it's stripped down rock and roll. It is it's the Shirelles, it's the Ronettes,
Yeah.
it's traditional rock, the roots of rock and roll brought down to the bare essentials, the barest essentials. Dudes who can, no disrespect, not really the greatest musicians, but took their skills and played those same type of traditional rock and roll doo-wop era
Yeah.
chord progressions. That's Americana.
Yeah.
And they stripped it down to fucking jeans, leather jackets, which is like the Lords of Flat fucking Bush, the Fonz. You know what we're talking about? We're talking about the Beach Boys meets Shana Na.
Nailed it.
Way Beach.
Nailed it. Dude, because you were running around as a child watching all these bands from a very young age, do you remember the first time you saw the Ramones live?
Yeah, and it's funny because I was thinking about this. I never saw them at CB's, ironically. First time I went to CB's was, believe it or not,
To play.
no, actually, first time I went there, the Ramones hadn't even played there yet. I
Wow.
went there in 73. They didn't play there until 74.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was talking to uh, Marky at that CB's thing, right?
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, dude, I started going to CB's at the fucking year it opened, and I played there at the last fucking matinee, the last weekend. And it's like, yo, when you have one of the Ramones saying you probably went to CB's and played at CB's more times than anybody else, living or dead. I did. Fucking did.
That's wild.
And but ironically, I never saw the fucking Ramones there because when they were their heyday at CB's, I was in Europe. So that's when I was I was seeing punk shows over there. I went to the 100 Club and shit like that. I saw, I was kicking it with people like Rat Scabies, who at the time the Damned had broken up, but he had a band called the White Cats for a moment, which my aunt Denise actually played with them. And so anyway, the first time I remember seeing him, I think it was at a party, which would lead me to think that it was probably at Arturo's Loft because
Yeah.
I don't remember them playing at many parties. and but I didn't know Arturo. I was a kid, so you got to remember. I mean, like this, we're talking about. Look, I was like 12 or 13, right? I'm 58. I'm gonna be 59 next month, so it's a long time ago. I don't remember. It had to be Arturo's house.
Yeah, I would say that's probably correct.
That's almost better than seeing them at CBGB's, though, seeing them
Yeah.
at their private rehearsal space, like
Well,
at the
yeah, it
age of
was
12.
wild. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and because there wasn't a lot of fucking people there. I mean, there were people there, but it was,
The
like a
set.
loft or some shit, right? Wasn't his place a loft?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then it was. It had to be because where the
Yeah.
fuck else would they have played at a party in the city at a loft? Okay, so the first time I saw them was at fucking Arturo's,
Yeah.
and then I remember, I only saw you play with them like 3 times. I think the last time was in the '90s in San Francisco when I was I had like kind of fell off the wagon hard, and that was the last time I saw you guys play live. But I had the pleasure of seeing, I probably only saw him a total of 5 times, and sadly none of those were at CB's.
Did you ever get
Did
to
the,
know any of the guys?
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
Joey, Johnny, D Day.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Actually, I think it was my 13th or my 14th birthday. We played at Irving Plaza, the Stimulators. We played with the Rattlers and the fuck if I can remember, but I think the Rattlers was Joey's brother's band, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
that's right.
And yeah, and so Joey came up on stage at the before our set and sang happy birthday to me because it was my birthday that night. So it was like Joey Ramone's up on stage singing, by himself, no bands, up there singing happy birthday. They fucking came out with a fucking cake. And that was pretty fucking awesome. I mean, how many kids can say that that Joey Ramone sang at their fucking party? I
Other
mean,
than
it was
you,
big,
zero.
Yeah, so I mean, now correct me if I'm wrong. Like his eyesight was fucking. He didn't have any eyesight. So so it was funny because whenever I'd see him, I'd be like, "What's up, Joey?" And he'd just like, "Hey, what's up?" And then I'd lean over and go, "It's Harley." And he'd be like, "Hey, Harley, man, how you been?" Blah, 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 blah. So I was like, I had to always like let him know who he was actually talking to, or else he'd just be like, "Hey, yeah." Am I wrong?
Yeah. No, not definitely not.
You have to like fill him in on who the fuck he's talking
Yeah.
to.
Did the Stimulators ever play with the Ramones?
Nah, man, we didn't, but I mean, obviously we were in the same circles all the time.
Yeah.
It's funny because when I was I was obviously one of the people say I was the first, but I don't know. I was the first skinhead in New York. I know that. But anyway, and I think most people know that Johnny was a little bit towards the conservative side of the fence. And so
Yeah.
he naturally assumed that, because I was like somewhat patriotic, I was definitely, I wasn't one of these fuck America punk rockers. I was like, fuck you. I was like, I love my country. So he really appreciated that. We never talked politics. We didn't have to. He was just like, hey, he's come up,
Yeah.
and he was not a talker, but he always was, he would always smile when he saw me. We'd always shoot the shit. You didn't get too much conversation out of him, but I did. And, and then of course, me and Didi, we had many interactions over the years, but, as, I in the '90s, like I said, when I was kind of falling off the wagon hard, he was also not doing so great. And
Yeah.
I remember a few times where I actually saw him coming and I actually like ducked out and went the other way. And it wasn't because I was so much trying to avoid him or anything. It was just that I knew that no fucking good could come of the two of us getting together. I was like, if me and this motherfucker get together, like we're gonna start plotting some really fucked up shit, or we're gonna, you know, like we're gonna try to do some music, but it's probably gonna turn into like a B&E or some shit, you know? Something's gonna go. We're gonna like try to do something in the studio that's gonna turn into us like robbing a drug dealer
Yeah.
or some fucking. I was just like, nah, let me just go this direction, you know. So I kind of went this way. He didn't see me, and you know. But you know, that was just the last few times, sadly, you know.
You know about the punk rock museum in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You heard about that. So I give
Yeah, yeah,
tours
they
there
got
every
a bunch
once.
of my shit in there. Yeah.
Brother, they got a giant picture of you and Joe Strummer on the wall. As soon as you walk into the New York room, it's a giant picture of you and Joe Strummer. Well, we'll talk about that afterwards. I want to talk to you about that. But the I give tours in that place, right? And I always tell everybody, uh, you know, punk rock didn't get big when it came out, because it wasn't supported by the record companies. The record companies realized that they couldn't sell heroin use and all of this stuff that came along with the punk rock scene. They couldn't sell that. That's why they created new wave. They created new wave because it was people who looked punk. It had all the fashion, but the music was lighter, and they could sell it to kids in the Midwest.
Okay, I'm gonna agree and disagree.
All right,
I'm gonna
let's go. Let me hear it.
challenge you, CJ.
Come on, let's go. Come on.
All right. I agree on a certain level, okay? But at the same time, if you go back to the first, okay, forget about the like stiff records putting out the Damned and Nick Lowe and this and that. The majority of the first punk rock albums, I'm not talking about singles, the first
Mhm.
albums came out on major labels.
Yeah, yeah, but
Okay. No, wait a second. Wait a second.
okay.
Hear me out.
Sorry. Good.
All those first bands got picked up by major labels because the major labels thought that this was going to be the next thing. Okay. Now, Malcolm McLaren obviously had his plan. They were going to keep getting fired, keep getting dropped from labels and so on. So he had his whole strategy worked out. In my opinion, this is what happened. Okay. Because you had Generation X was on a major label. Susie and the Banshees, who at the time was considered punk because goth was not a term, were
Mhm.
on a major label. Even fucking 999 and like lesser important bands were on major labels. Forget about the Clash and everybody. They were all on fucking major labels.
Yeah,
Then Nancy died.
yeah,
And then punk rock was scary as fuck.
yeah.
All of a sudden, it was like the Manson family.
Yep.
All of a sudden, drugs, junkies, murder. And all the fucking labels said, okay, we're putting all our fucking money on the Talking Heads and fucking Blondie and all the bands that you just fucking was talking about. Because prior to that incident, which everybody knows he didn't do, prior to that incident, every fucking punk band was on a motherfucking major label. And that's just fucking true. If you look through your vintage punk rock record collection, I think even fucking Sham 69's first album was on a major. And that was, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I believe that what happened was, you know, first of all, Malcolm McLaren went out there and fucking like played games with the entire system and,
Yeah.
you know, like, and basically taught all these next generation bands that you don't even have to be musicians, which is why the next generation of punk bands was not as good. Because also
That
now you had punk bands that were imitating other punk bands instead of punks who grew up on actual music who were creating something new. Because the first generation of punk rockers grew up on shit like T-Rex and Bowie and Slade and whatever the fuck else they grew up on, and they made it MC5, Iggy Pop, and they turned it punk, right? They made their stuff. They made music. By the time it got to bands like The Exploited and all these third, second, fourth generation, the music wasn't as good and the costumes were better.
all right.
Punk
That's
rock
that's a,
history 101.
yeah, that's exactly the story that I tell at the punk rock museum, and it's really good to hear you say the same things that I say because I tell all those stories about Sid and Nancy and the whole thing. Um,
I got the key to the room.
yeah, that's
Hold
wild,
on one
brother.
second. Can you hold on 2 seconds?
Yeah, please,
Yeah,
please, please.
go, grab it. That's wild, brother.
What room
Room
number was it? 100.
room 100.
That
I
is
was
wild.
the first person to stay in the room after they took the police tape off the door.
That
Me and
is
the punk
wild.
rock couple, this couple that I was friends with,
Wow.
the fuck, I can't remember her name, but yeah, we were and because you know, the New York Police Department back then, they were a little sloppy with their investigations and so on and so forth. They didn't keep all the keys for printing and so on because they just figured he did it. Blah, blah, blah. I thought it was an open close. So I had the key that obviously they had two keys. So Sid and Nancy and whoever else, they all had that key. That was
Yeah.
their key. So I kept the motherfucker.
Did you meet
Good
Sid?
for you, brother. Good
I
for
also
you,
got
man.
fucking Joe Strummer's shirt hanging up over here that from the first show they did in America. He gave it to me at the second show.
Did you meet Sid, Harley?
No, I was in fucking London when he died, man. I was really bummed out. And like, actually, the Stimulators were supposed to play at Max's the same, I think we were scheduled to play on Monday, and he was supposed to play on a Sunday. Like he was playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or some shit like that. We were scheduled to play the day after, so like I was like, I'm definitely gonna meet him. I'm definitely gonna meet him. And then what happened was he got arrested. He hadn't died yet. He actually got arrested before that happened. So I never wound up meeting him. And then of course, yeah, we were all fucking so devastated when he died. It was really traumatic for the punk rock community. Yeah.
I
But
know
it's
you.
probably better off that I didn't meet him because I would have probably been, pretty disappointed because he was really he was pretty messy at that point. And you know what, dude? It's like, it's so fucking sad when you think about it, man. Because, like, I mean, he was like, fuck, what, 21?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And he
He's a
died,
kid.
I mean, both my kids, my fucking son just turned 20, my youngest son just turned 21 yesterday. All right. I can't even imagine the fucking pressure of just being a fucking nobody, fuck up, and all of a sudden being like, you can't fucking take a walk out of your fucking tour bus without Papa fucking Rotzi, and you're the most sensational fucking. People forget how overwhelmingly fucking what an explosion the Sex Pistols were, man.
Yeah.
They were like the anti-Beatles. It was like the Beatles, but like
Well, it was a very
the opposite.
specific kind of attention, wasn't it? Because it was hatred.
Yeah,
It wasn't
it,
adoration that they received on a mass scale. It was these guys are villains and they were
bad
vilified.
news. Yes, and for us, it was like,
Yeah.
I remember the first time fucking my mother got me that fucking album.
Mm.
She got me that, The Damned, and The Dead Boys, and a bunch of Stiff records was my first batch of vinyl, of punk vinyl she brought back from London. And I heard that fucking, I put on that fucking first album, and bro, it changed my fucking life, dude. I was like, this is, I was already playing music, but I was like, this is me. This speaks to me.
Yeah.
I know you
Johnny.
know John. I know you know John, and I've interviewed him a couple of times over the years, and I love John. I think very highly of him. I feel like Sid's death sort of still affects him and
Of course.
hurts him, and
Absolutely.
you get the sense that he feels like a sense of responsibility for that, and it obviously causes him so much pain still. And it's another tragic flip side to the glory of punk
Yeah,
that you were referring to in your own life, right? Is like, as well
absolutely,
as the
man.
celebration and the good stuff, there is a lot of darkness and sadness there as
No, this
Me,
well.
is life. This is our
me and
experience.
me and Joey got to interview Johnny Lydon. It was like 92, 93 for a magazine. So he came up to Joey's apartment and
Wow.
it was just me, Joey, Johnny Lydon, and then there was somebody there doing all the, taping it, taking notes, all that type of stuff. So for me, it was like my opportunity to find out what happened with Sid. I I always wanted to know, because
Oh boy.
you know, so so
You had to be
it,
that guy.
I had to.
You asshole. You couldn't.
So I said to him, and we were taking a break from the interview. I said, can I just ask you a couple questions about Sid? And he was like, yeah, go ahead. So I said, um, what really happened? What really happened with him and Nancy? What really happened? I said, because, in our, to us, to fans, we always heard that it was not Sid who killed her. Like that was, you know, we had that was our truth to the story. And and um and Johnny said, uh he said, well, I talked to Sid while he was in jail. While Sid was still in jail.
Yeah, yeah, when he was in Rikers.
They Johnny had a phone call with him, and Sid said he was scared because the cops weren't even investigating anything else.
Yeah.
They were
No, I
just
know.
putting it on him, that there
It
was
was
no
wild, dude.
investigation being
It was
done.
wild.
And Sid knew that. And
Yeah.
and Johnny said that, Sid told him that he didn't do it, that he thought it was their drug dealer who came back to while they were passed out. And that was always the story that we had heard on the street. That was,
You know what? I mean, I'm not gonna create mythology. I'm just gonna give you an opinion.
yeah.
From what I understand, and actually friend of my wife, her father did the autopsy, I
Oh,
believe.
wow.
I know he did Sid, he did all the major ones, right? Um, from what I understand, it was one wound and it was about an inch or so deep. It wasn't a very deep wound, even, right? Um, in my experience with crimes of passion, which we all know a stabbing is, you don't poke someone slightly. I've never heard of that happening. I've never heard of that. Usually you get stuck a bunch of times because
Yeah.
shit is fucking in the middle of craziness. Usually there's defensive wounds of some sort.
Yeah.
There's cuts on hands. Usually there's other people's blood there too, because usually the stabber cuts themselves. Stabbings are pretty wild. I've been in a few of them. um, I don't think she was stabbed. Um, it was very normal for punk rockers to cut themselves back in the day. It was before the term cutter existed. And he used to cut himself up all the time.
Yeah.
She used to cut herself up all the time. I don't know, but I'm just saying, I was in a lot of really fucked up drugged out relationships with crazy fucking chicks, like where we were like always in some sort of state of drug induced madness.
Mm.
I I I think she poked herself in some sort of a prove a point type of thing or some shit. I can't say, but
Mhm.
I don't believe that she was stabbed with any sort of purposeful stabbing by anybody else because I've never heard of any such a thing. I've
Yeah.
never heard of anybody getting poked a fucking half an inch one time in their abdomen. I can totally see someone, yeah, fuck you. I'll stab myself in the leg or I'll stab myself here or I'll cut, well, you know. And Sid was fucking passed the fuck out. That motherfucker was laid the fuck out, wakes up in a room full of dead girlfriend, bloody everything, police, and ga. He doesn't know what the fuck is going on. I don't believe he did it.
Right.
And I'm not making up stories. I'm not trying to create mythology. Stabbings don't happen like that. Ask a fucking cop.
So there's another story that I tell on the tours at the museum. Um, and so I had met you before, but I never met Roger from Agnostic Front. I
Just
just
spoke
didn't
to him
know
the
him.
other day.
I'd run into him like I'd been at shows and stuff, but I never really met him. So I was at the punk rock museum giving tours, and Roger and Vinny were there. So I just walked up and I introduced myself. I was like, "Hey, CJ
Wait,
Malone."
that's the first time you met those motherfuckers?
Yeah, I had
Are you
never met
shitting
them.
me?
I never met them before. Yeah, brother.
Wow.
Yep.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah. So it
That's
was
fucking kind of mind-boggling. I would have fucking figured you'd know those motherfuckers at least as long as
no,
me.
I never met them. But so on the tour, it goes from the New York hardcore scene. The next room over is the DC room, right?
Of
So
course.
when I give the tour and I'm talking about the New York hardcore scene, I always say um there was one band that came and played in New York that really changed our scene dramatically. I said, and that's a band from this next room, and I introduced the Bad Brains, right? So when I met Roger, I said to him, I go, hey brother, would you do me a favor? Um, would you come in and just give a little talk on my tour? And he goes, on your tour? What am I going to talk about? I say, can you just come in and talk about the Bad Brains? And he was like, absolutely. So
I love Roger.
he comes into the DC room with me, and I introduced him. I said, it's Roger from Agnostic Front. He's going to talk to you guys a little bit about one of the bands here.
This is
And
jackpot for that tour group, by the way.
oh yeah, absolutely. So Roger opens up with the same thing I always said. He's like, this band came to New York and really changed our scene a lot. And it was so good to hear him say that, because even though we're in the same scene and see the same bands and everything else, different people remember things in a different way, or people
Well,
have a
man, let me
different
tell you something,
perception
man.
of things, you know?
New York was still playing punk rock when the fucking Bad Brains came to New York and kicked everybody's ass. And that's just that. I
Yeah.
remember first time I saw them, they were still wearing suits and the tie and that whole the early. Bro, Stimulators used to play with the motherfucking time. We got them some of their first gigs because believe it or not, some of the clubs wouldn't book them because they were black.
Yep.
And I guess it was just like at the time it wasn't really normal for black groups to be playing rock or punk rock. I mean, Pure Hell was around, but they were like kind of it.
Yep.
But Bad Brains were on another level. They changed everything and like kind of were the reason that I started uh, writing and why my music started taking the turn it did, and ultimately why I left the Stimulators to start my own band was because there was just this new it was just a change of guard, man. It was like a new feeling, and they really brought that the musicality and the, the technical aspects that
Yeah.
nobody really was. They pushed me to be a musician instead of just write punk songs. They made me actually take my instrument serious. And yeah, those motherfuckers changed everything.
And
Absolutely.
I got to tell you, brother, uh, your bass playing on on all the Cro-Mag stuff, but in particular, of course, Age of Quarrel, Best Wishes, the your bass sound and your playing on those records is just fucking stellar, brother. Like really,
Thank you.
really, uh, um,
I owe a lot of that to Daryl from the Bad Brains. I was
yeah. I know.
fortunate.
You said that in the
Yeah.
movie. I was like, that's cool. That's
No,
cool.
I
You gave
was
him those
lucky enough
props.
to grow up watching him play as a kid as I was making the transition from drums to bass. And obviously, my style of playing is very percussive because I'm a drummer, but he really, playing with those guys, watching him as I was growing up and then going on tour with Motorhead, that was the things that kind of just really cemented who I was. Obviously, we borrow things from all the people that influence us, and I was able to kind of forge my own way with those ingredients and a little bit of Geezer Butler and a little bit of Rainey from Discharge and some Kronos from Venom.
Yeah.
A couple of
And
quick fire questions, Harley. When
Yeah,
you're drumming and you're playing standing up, is that literally just because of your size in relation to what's around you and trying to reach everything, or
it
because
was just
super unique even in that approach? First of all,
it just felt I just felt like getting up.
amazing.
You just couldn't keep me down anymore. I was like, of course, then, the show always ended like, Keith Moon, Rat Scabies style, like kicking the drums over, throwing them into the fucking crowd, basically trying to wreck them as much as you could, without actually breaking the shells.
Because we
But
just had Slim Jim Phantom on the show as our last
oh
guest,
fuck, bro,
and
bro,
probably
bro,
the only two drummers in punk rock that
dude.
stand back to back.
Simulators played with the fucking Stray Cats when they were called the Top Cats at
Oh wow,
Max's. Bro, I remember that fucking gig like it was yesterday. He fucking busted his fucking hand on on the rim and was fucking bleeding all over the fucking place. Fucking, it was so fucking great. Yo, Stray Cats, those motherfuckers killed it. And when I saw them, they were the Top Cats, right? But yo, what a fucking phenomenal band and what a
Yeah.
sick guitarist, man. That fucking dude could play his ass off, bro.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
was
I
lucky
told
that I got to play with them fuckers, huh?
he was telling us a story about they were playing over in the UK, and like it
Axis.
was members of like Yes in the audience and all these like high
Rolling
end bands,
Stones, yeah.
Get the
Rolling
fuck out.
Stones, yeah, and he was like, just
This is
like
before they're signed as well. This is like right out the
Yeah,
gate.
yeah.
and he was like, he was like, I didn't understand why all these high end bands were there watching us. I said, because brother, nobody did what you guys did better than you did it.
Well, the
Like
funny
you
shit is
guys
that
were the
rockabilly
top.
was pretty big in England at the time, but they
Yeah,
didn't have any rockabilly bands really.
yeah,
So
yep,
it's like the look was real popular and the records from the past were really popular, but they didn't really have any. There was a couple like uh Levi and the Rockettes. They had this dude named Smutty. He was from London. So there was not a lot of
yeah,
uh that motherfucker. Yo, they were next level, man.
yeah, yep.
Um
And then
That's
jump into
wild. You
His
played with
mom
them.
lives in Maspeth by my aunt in Queens.
Oh
Like down
yeah,
the block from my aunt.
oh that's wild.
jump into the Bad Brains as well
Yeah,
from drumming to jumping on bass and songwriting, and you're saying they're the band that inspired that whole
absolutely.
transition
They
and
were
growth.
such
One of
a
the
big
things I love the most about your movie is the obvious love that you have for that man, for Daryl, like for the band, but for him as an individual. There's such
yeah.
beautiful respect and love that clearly exists both ways between you two. It was one of my favorite details of the film was watching that friendship on screen and just
Yeah.
the two
I
of you
got goosebumps.
reminiscing and
No, he's my big brother. He's my big brother. If I ever had a big brother, that was him.
was he the
Like
first positive role model on that scene for you? Then you're talking
on
about
that
some of the
scene,
shady characters. Were there positive role models
there were
around as
definitely a
well?
few positive role models, but he was definitely one of them. He was definitely one of them. And you know, yeah, man, he's a fucking great guy. I'm really lucky I had him in my life because I didn't have a lot of I didn't have a lot of people who really kind of treated me like a kid, and uh, he treated me like a kid brother, man. You know, he abused the shit out of me.
Yeah,
In a loving way.
Yeah, it was all love. It was all love, but it was relentless, and I fucked with him all the time. I was like a fucking mosquito. I was always fucking with him. And he would just fucking ground and pound the fucking shit out of me. And
yeah.
it makes my face hurt, just thinking about it. I fucking love that guy. And yeah, I'm lucky to have had him in my life. And he also, he was one of the few people who really didn't judge me when I was going off the deep end because I think he knew I had a lot of things going on.
And did they take their name from the Ramones song?
I would have to say yes.
Okay.
Um,
Hold
yeah.
on. I got a story. I got to tell you this because you'll dig this. A couple years ago, I did a benefit show in L.A. and I went there with my wife and my daughter, and we walked into the room, and in the corner, HR was standing. And I walked right over to, I dropped my wife's hand. I walked right over to him and I put my hand out, shake his hand. And I don't fanboy out over a lot of people, but I was like, you guys changed everything. And he shook my hand and he said, of course, darling. I was, uh, I was like, but I stood there with him for like, 10 minutes, just going back and forth, telling him, how much I loved the Bad Brains and whatnot. And
I think this story has made Harley's day.
yeah, yeah, because he knows what I'm talking about. That's like, that is so him. And but he said to me, he said, hey, he said, we took our name from the Ramones song Bad Brain. And I
See,
was
back
like,
in the day, you would have walked up to him and said all that shit, and he would have looked at you and said, Rastafari.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yo, yeah, man.
yeah,
Yo, I love Joe, man. But he's no disrespect. He's seen some better days.
yeah,
But life is hard, man, and it's complicated. And some people take beatings better than others,
yeah,
and talking
yep,
about the beatings that we do to ourselves, and it's I really love the guy, and it sucks to have seen some of the turns he has taken, and but there's no denying what a huge inspiration he was on so many people, and what a powerful presence that he had, not just as a performer, but just like uh, the presence he had just filled up a room. And I guess, look, the brain is a really fragile instrument, and none of us, we're all born on different spectrums. I know he's got some issues. I don't know what they are. He might be bipolar, maybe there's some schizophrenia in there, this, that, the other. I don't fucking know.
yeah,
But again, that's why I go back to gratitude, man. I go back to gratitude. I'm grateful for right now. I'm grateful that my brain works at all, bro. There were times I was so fucked up on drugs where I really didn't think I was going to get normal again. I remember a few times where I really thought that, okay, I'm going to have to get used to functioning like this because I don't know if I'm going to make it back.
yeah,
And, thank God that we're here, happy and
yeah,
breathing and alive, man. And HR was a huge inspiration. You know,
yep.
amazing. He's left an imprint. That's more than most people will ever do.
Sound checks at 5:02. Record stores and interviews. Oh, but I can't wait to be with you tomorrow.
We are hoping that you enjoyed the first half of that interview. If you want to catch the second half, head over to patreon.com/CJ Says. If you are already a Patreon subscriber, thank you very much. It's all about you guys right now. We have to thank first our dream team, Audra and Jess, who are steering this bus. They're making it all happen. Thanks to our resident artist, Dirty Donnie, for the graphics. And last but not least, we got to thank all the Ramones fans all over the world who've been tuning in to watch these episodes, but especially you Patreon subscribers. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the next one.